Here we are in the Leviim Art Gallery. Today we have a very special guest, Ari White from the Wandering Cube. I like to say, I think everyone will agree, he's the one that brought barbecue to the kosher world. Is that correct?
Brought back barbecue.
I'm sorry.
This is an old Masora that has been ours for a very long time.
So, which brought Izzy's. He trained Izzy's, right, Ari?
I introduced him.
And Izzy's in turn brought it to Crown Heights, which in turn brings a lot of people to Crown Heights, which then brings us people to our art gallery. So here we have Ari White from, where are you originally from, Texas?
El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas. And please tell us the history, how you got into barbecue. What's your background, where you come from, and how you land with barbecue, and where you see the void, and then how you tackle. What's the full story?
I'm going to take it, I guess a full story brings us back just over about 100 years. There is the country's foremost barbecue historian and fanatic, guy that goes by the name Barbecue Snob. His name is Daniel Vaughn. He is the barbecue critic for Texas Monthly magazine, which down south is a very big deal. This is the kind of guy whose picture is up on every barbecue restaurant. Like, if this man walks through the door, make sure he gets the best piece you have. He did a historical piece on the history of barbecue brisket as we now serve it. And the oldest written examples that he was able to find was from not one, but two places in El Paso, Texas, my hometown, dating back to 1911. And one was from the kosher place, and one was from the kosher-ish place. I guess some things never change. But I guess all bringing back to the forefront that barbecue brisket and this barbecue Masora is by no means new to the Yidden, to the Jewish world, and I'm very happy to see it sort of taking its rightful place back up front. Certainly, without a doubt, championed in this neighborhood by nobody better than my friends truly from Izzy's.
So how did you get into barbecue from El Paso?
There are no kosher barbecue restaurants. There are no kosher restaurants at all in El Paso.
So how did you live in New York?
So you learn to cook, and I guess when in Rome, barbecue is sort of that in Tex-Mex, the most common foods down there. So it's by no surprise that when my family came around 1913 and traveled through Ellis Island wasn't the main port of entry at that point. It was Houston and Galveston. My family was actually turned away and went through Mexico and then came back across. El Paso del Norte is the Paso of the North. It was this border town. And so it's not surprising that when they would come in, the kosher place that they would go to, exactly what would be on that menu is barbecue brisket. So when 60 years later, my grandfather, first meets my father who came from Boston, like, it's not surprising that they were, smoking turkeys in the back, because that would have been what my grandfather, who was born here, would have been brought up on. And so I guess I'm pretty proud to be a third generation barbecue guy. And when I came up here to New York, I came for school. And while having grown up in a place without any kosher restaurants, I mean, on your amazing block alone, there's 25 places here, mashu kazeh. I'm excited to be eating fried chicken tonight across the street at my friend Izzy's. I can't tell you how excited. But the one thing that was missing was barbecue. There was nothing, the Yankees up here thought if you put barbecue sauce on your chicken and stuck it in the oven, like, that was it. So
did the kosher trend also coincide with the general trend of barbecue around America?
I think that they were happening very much at the same time, yes. As I started doing it here, was really as New York City was just beginning to experience a real renaissance, if you will, with guys at places like Brisket Town, and Hometown Barbecue, and all of these amazing places coming and really giving respect to a Texan approach of wood smoke.
What was your first move? You had the idea, You did it at home in Texas. You come to New York. You're in college.
No, I didn't do it. I was a finance guy in school. I was a bait and switch to my vegetarian wife. But you know, what can I tell you?
So what was your first move? You were working in a bank somewhere? What was the story?
We
graduated school and then what?
We lent money, our wedding money, to a friend to open a restaurant. A guy's name was Ari, so we were going to call it Ari's, ARIS apostrophe. Gourmet kosher delicatessen, which was a great name for a restaurant half the size of this room. It was 6 by 16 feet, but it was across from YU. You know, 3,000 kids with their parents' credit cards. It seemed like it made a lot of sense. 6 weeks in, he bailed. I love the guy, he's still a good friend of mine, but he had to do what he had to do, and my wife and I were just sort of stuck with the restaurant. So I quit the corporate world and jumped in and never really looked back. That turned into catering, and I guess my taste of these like smoked products kept coming to the forefront. Our Texas Smokehouse Cholent, under a different name. I believe it's that whole bodega is now called Sababa up in the Heights. But
so you jumped into catering,
and people kept asking like, how can we get your food without crashing somebody's wedding or like kiddush, or you know, like how do we do this? And so I wasn't going to open a restaurant because with a bunch of kids, I think it's hard to have a good family life in that world. Says the guy who works 90 hours a week now. What can I tell you? But we agreed. Pop-ups were just barely a thing, barely, like very underground. So I decided to do a 5-day pop-up, and we ended up serving like thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
So now you only do pop-ups.
And I realized then that like we were onto something, and I bought about 2 months later, bought that first gator pit as opposed to all of my homemade barbecue pits, and that was the one that we named Hakadosh Barbecue, and the rest kind of, I guess, is.
So if you have a food idea, what's the steps?
If you went and asked Sruli across the street what I spent that entire 6 months that he volunteered. He volunteered to work with us. I didn't pay him one penny. He volunteered for 6 months, the hardest working guy that I had. But if you ask him, what I told him from day one to the last day he walked out of there was, don't do it. And it, oddly enough, was the same thing that Mike Gershkovitz from Mike's Bistro told me when I was opening up my place. And I was stubborn, like Sruli was stubborn. And sometimes you got to follow what you love. But I love.
Let's quickly move the camera to, I think,
your neighbors across the street.
Restaurant right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Place in case you wanna go visit.
Under the tutelage of Ari White.
No, that.
This reminds me of what's it called? Schnitzel.
We have the greatest on the world, and your uncle and your grandmother are all telling you that you're the best artist in the world. Go to all the galleries. Give us 3 steps. You have a food idea. How do you take it to market?
I would start at the first step, which is that if you think that the food industry is for you,
So you show me, or you should should I just walk
I'm
around?
gonna show you.
Go and get a job in it.
Look at video.
Go and get a job in it. If you think it's for you, go and get a job. For most people, they burn out and it's not for them. But better to find that out on somebody else's dollar than borrowing or spending $250,000, $500,000, $1 million to open a place to learn the hard way. Because that's how most people learn.
Would you tell people to test market as soon as possible of non-family members to really get an honest opinion?
Nope.
No.
Because I would almost go so far as to say that the quality of the food is going to be secondary to your success. Because you can always learn to do that better. I think maybe with art, like maybe you have something on the inside that can be cultivated. So too with this industry. Either you can work those hours, either you can take that stress, either you can have open ears to the sort of like critique that you put yourself out there for, or you can't do all of those things, and then it doesn't matter how delicious your bubby's tzimmus recipe is, like it's never gonna happen.
It's more about the grind than the recipe and skill.
I think it's not as much as more, because if the food at a place is crap, it doesn't matter how hard you're working, but it doesn't matter how good your food is if you can't back it up with the work that's involved. And Sruli was a perfect example of a guy who's not afraid to work hard. And nobody should think that any of this is easy, not socially, not emotionally, not with families, not financially. It's a rough grind.
Isn't it nice that you create so much memories, Ari? What is that part of your business?
I gotta say that being able to be involved in smachot, weddings, brisses, Shabbatot, like oneg, simcha, I mean, it's nice to be able to.
Especially Popples, people remember where they went you when they met you first. It's not, oh, I met you in a restaurant. Oh, that event or this thing, and you create a whole memory.
I'm so grateful for the friends that I've made, not even around the city, but literally around the country from doing these. So
thanks so much, Ari.
awesome, thank you. I'll go back to work.